Hi everybody, Bob Gager from Adobe here with another installment of Ask Bob, where I get to answer questions from our Photoshop Elements fans. Today's question comes in through the Ask Bob Facebook page, and it's from Ron. Ron would like to know how to create a black and white pencil sketch effect in Photoshop Elements. He saw an interesting tutorial on YouTube of how to do it in Photoshop, but is wondering how to achieve the same effect inside of Photoshop Elements. Well, Ron, thanks for asking the question. And also, thank you very much for sending in your photo that you would like to have the pencil sketch applied to. I'm actually going to use it in the tutorial. Okay, let's switch over to Photoshop Elements. I'm using Photoshop Elements 2018, the very latest version. But I actually don't think there's any step in this tutorial that isn't there in some of the earlier versions as well. All right, so let's get started. I've got your photo open here. The first thing I noticed, if I zoom in a little bit, I know you didn't ask about this, but this really caught my eye right off the bat, is your photo looks like this is probably a scan of a print, and there's lots of scratches and dust on this copy. So let's first go fix that before we do anything else. I'm just going to drag and drop this background layer up onto the new layer icon to create a copy of the layer. So I just drag and drop. Oh, by the way, I'm in expert mode. So if you're not in expert mode, switch over to expert mode on the top. And then also, if for some reason this layers panel on the right isn't showing, click the little layers icon down on the bottom to get your layers panel to show. So we've made a copy of our background layer, again, just by dragging and dropping it onto the new layer icon. I'm going to double click the name and rename it. I'm going to call it Scratches and Dust, just so I can remember what I did to that layer. Now with that layer selected, this blue highlight of the layer indicates that's the selected layer. Come up to the filter menu up top, so right up here, filter, and come down to noise, and then go over to dust and scratches and select that. That will open up the dust and scratches filter. You can move this around if it's covering up something, but you can see it's already gotten rid of a lot of the dust and scratches. If I uncheck this little preview check mark, you can see that's the original. Check it, and that's the after. Now it's not going to get rid of everything, but it does a pretty good job. You can slide the sliders around. You know, the radius is sort of how big, how many pixels something is determined to be dust or a scratch. You don't want to crank it too high or things get blurry. So you want to leave it pretty low, you know, maybe 1 or 2 and things start to get blurry. I'm actually going to leave it at 1. And then you can mess with threshold as well and see what that does. Actually, the higher the threshold, kind of the more dust and scratches comes back. So with this photo, we want to leave them both pretty low, 1 and 0, or maybe 1 and 1, something like that. And then just go ahead and hit OK. You can see a lot of the dust and scratches are gone. This little eyeball icon, if you're not familiar with working in layers, this icon right here will show or hide a layer. So if I click on it, this scratches and dust layer is hidden, and you can see the original. If I click on the eyeball again, you can see how the dust and scratches are gone. And for some of the bigger scratches, I would use the spot healing brush. So this tool right here, go ahead and click on that. And get your brush size. I'm using the keyboard shortcut of the left and right bracket keys to resize my brush. Get it pretty small, about the size of your scratch or your dust spot, and just drag over the spots. And the spot healing tool will do a really good job of fixing up these scratches. So I'll just kind of fix this piece of hair. It looked like it was on your shirt, a couple of these spots. Kind of look around, here's a spot here, so just click on that. So the dust and scratches filter followed by the spot healing brush is a pretty powerful combination to get your photo fixed up. All right, so kind of like that. Again, there's the before and there's the after. All right, now let's get into creating that pencil sketch effect. We actually have a really easy way to do it in Photoshop Elements, and I'm going to show you that first. With the scratches and dust layer selected, up top, switch from the expert mode back to quick. The The quick edit mode is a mode really designed for bringing to life a lot of the power of Photoshop elements, but in a very easy way. And over in the bottom right, it probably will start off in adjustments selected. So in this right panel, you'll have a bunch of adjustments you can do. But the next panel over, this effects panel, go ahead and click on that. And there's a bunch of effects here. Down just a little bit. Oops, I didn't want to scroll the picture. I wanted to scroll this panel. Number 4 in the list is Pencil Sketch. Go ahead and click on Pencil Sketch. And Photoshop Elements is going to do all the work for you. We analyze the photo, we figure out how to do a nice pencil sketch effect, and there you go. If this is the look you want, you can just stop here and you're done. Print it, share it, post it on Facebook, whatever you might want to do with your pencil sketch version of your photo. But maybe this isn't quite what you want. We actually have a number of variations right here in the quick edit effects mode, and you just click on them to check them out. So here's a different variation. Here's another one. Let it apply. There we go. That's a little rougher, kind of a charcoaly look. Here's one called stippling. Yeah, I don't know that I like that one, but that's just a different effect. And if you want really a little bit of color in your pencil sketch, there's one called color pencil as well. But I actually like the first one, which is why we put it first. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave that there. Now I'm going to switch back to expert mode. Again, up here in the top, quick guided expert. I'm going to switch to expert mode and maybe scroll my image a little bit. And what that did was added a new layer and applied the pencil sketch to it. I'm going to double click it and rename it quick. Oops, I'm going to select the text and name it quick pencil sketch, just so we can remember that's how we created that layer. And now I'm actually going to drag it down a little bit, right above our background layer to hide it, and actually click the eyeball icon just to hide that for now. We can always come back to it as we will in the end to compare that quick version versus a more complicated version that we're about to go through. Okay, next step is to start doing it the manual way, which gives us a lot more flexibility in the final look that we want. So the first thing I want to do again is make a duplicate of my scratches and dust layer and just drag that little layer icon up to this icon right here, which is our new layer icon, and let go. And you can see Photoshop Elements has made a copy, scratches and dust copy. If you can't see all of the text, if you hover your mouse kind of right on this edge, right here, you can resize that panel. It's a little touchy, you got to get it just right, but if you want to see all of the naming, you can drag it to the right a little bit and make some more room to see what's going on. Okay, so we have duplicated our scratches and dust layer, and double click the name, and we're going to rename this pencil sketch. So we can just keep things in our layers panel straight. And the first thing that we want to do is get rid of the color. And that's pretty easy. With that layer selected, we can come up to our Enhance menu, down to Adjust Color, and there's a choice, Remove Color. So it essentially does a pretty straightforward black and white conversion, gets rid of all of the color inside your photo. The next thing we want to do is adjust the levels a little bit. The photo's a little dark for my liking, so we want to brighten things up a little bit. If you go back to that Enhance menu, Adjust Lighting, and pick Levels, that'll bring up a levels adjustment dialog, and often just click Auto, and that'll kind of fix things a little bit. It actually darkened things a touch, but what it did is adjust the tonal information across your entire photo. To lighten it up a little bit, just drag this center triangle to the left a little bit, and that'll lighten things up just a touch for us. You can even drag the right slider if you really want to brighten things up, kind of boost those highlights, if you will. And I'm going to do a little bit of that as well. And this preview button, so we can see there's the before and there's the after. We've just brightened up your photo a little bit. So once you get it looking good, go ahead and click OK, and that will apply those changes to your photo. So the next thing we want to do is apply some pencil sketch effect to it. In our filter menu, in the artistic section, the very first one is called color pencil. So even though we're now working with a black and white effect, I'm going to pick the colored pencil. We won't get any colors, but I like sort of the results of the colored pencil better than some of the others. And so there you go. Photoshop Elements has gone ahead and applied the colored pencil effect to it. Again, no color since we converted this layer to black and white earlier. And you can mess around with these sliders over here on the right to get the look that you're after. I actually want to brighten it up just a little bit. So this paper brightness slider, I'll crank to the right a little bit. Maybe crank the pencil width down a little bit so we have some finer detail. And maybe the stroke pressure down a little bit, right? It's completely up to you. Well, now that I've got less stroke pressure, maybe I want a little wider pencil. There we go. That's kind of the look I'm after. Again, you've got complete control to have it look the way you're really trying to get your pencil sketch to look. So go ahead and tweak these three sliders to your own personal taste and select OK. Now we're back in the Photoshop Elements editor with a pencil sketch layer here in black and white. And now what we want to do is a couple tweaks to this layer. It's going to feel a little weird at first, but don't worry, as things come together towards the end, this is an important step. So the first thing is to invert the layer. Again, back to our filter menu. We're really getting a lot of use out of our filter menu today. Come to Adjustments and select Invert. And that turns black to white, white to black, and everything in between to the opposite shade of gray that it was. Now that we've got it inverted, this pull down right here, this is our blending mode pull down. So go ahead and change it from normal to exclusion. And that's going to feel a little weird at first, but don't worry, things are going to start to come together here pretty quickly. Okay, now we want another layer to highlight some details. Go ahead and select this scratches and dust layer, duplicate it. Remember, we do that by dragging and dropping it here onto our new layer icon. So that's made scratches and dust copy. Double click it and rename it details, just like that, and then click off to solidify the name. Now with that details layer selected, go back to our filter menu. Down in Sketch is a filter called Photocopy. Go ahead and select Photocopy, and that's going to create essentially photocopy kind of feel for that layer. In the photocopy filter are a couple of sliders, one for detail and one for darkness, and you can slide those around to get a different look for the photocopy. You could make it really dark if you wanted to do such a thing, make it lighter. What we want to do is crank the darkness slider not all the way to the left, but maybe about 5-ish. And the detail slider, we want to crank it all the way to the right. So 24 is the max. And then once you get it up there, maybe you want to mess with darkness a little more, but we kind of want to look about like that, right? Not really too dark, but we want to see some nice edges of the people inside the photo. When you're done getting it looking something like that, go ahead and click OK. So now we have a little bit different looking pencil sketch effect here. Back up in our layers panel, select the very top layer, that pencil sketch layer, and then this icon right here. This is our adjustment layer icon. Go ahead and click that and select levels. And that's going to add another layer at the very top, a levels adjustment layer. And we can use that to adjust sort of the tonal properties of the photo. So what we probably want to do, this right triangle here on our histogram, drag that to the right, kind of about where there's this big peak. And then the black one all the way on the left, drag that to the right. And then you can adjust the middle one to sort of set the midtones of your image. So play around with those three sliders to get kind of the look you're after. I'm going to create something kind of like that. And then you can close this level adjustments panel by clicking the little X. If you ever need to get it open again, just come over here and double click that and it will open that panel again for you. Okay, we're almost done. Now we want to add some highlights to the photo. So once again, select your scratches and dust layer, duplicate it by dragging and dropping it on top of the new layer icon. Double click it to rename it highlights, and then drag that highlights layer all the way to the top right there. So now again, we've got our color all back because this layer is on top of all those other layers underneath. Back to our filter menu, and down in the sketch section is something called torn edges. Go ahead and select torn edges. And again, the sliders over here on the right of the torn edges filter, we can mess around with those a little bit, but we want something similar to this. The image balance slider will sort of do that. We want to keep it down here where kind of just the edges of your photo are showing through. Smoothness is how we would smooth up or sharpen the image. We want to keep it pretty sharp, so keep it to the right. And then contrast kind of controls the look as well, how much of your image shows through. And we don't want it all the way to the left completely dark. We certainly don't want it all the way to the right. We want it towards the left, maybe something like that. And what we're really trying to do here is get some of the edges defined inside of our photo. When you get it looking like you want, go ahead and click OK. That will apply that filter to this layer. And then this layer mode again, back to this pull down, change it from normal to soft light. And that'll just sort of brighten up some highlights for us, getting the photo looking even more interesting. Again, we can see the before after by toggling this little eyeball icon. So that's with the highlights layer showing with the soft light blending mode, and that's without it. And then kind of one final thing, this levels layer, I actually want to drag that all the way to the top. Double click the icon again and mess with it. I usually, with the levels adjustment layer, just click auto and Photoshop Elements will analyze your photo and try and figure out the right thing to do, and then fine tune it myself. Maybe I want to darken the darks, maybe brighten the highlights even a little more, and maybe change those midtones. So you can mess around and get this pencil sketch looking exactly as you want it to look. So that's the hard way of doing it. Let me double click the hand to automatically resize down, or maybe even zoom in a little bit, because when it's zoomed all the way out, you can't really tell what the thing is going to look like. So something like that. Back to our layers panel, this quick pencil sketch, the one we made originally in the quick edit mode. I'm going to drag that all the way to the top, and then I'm going to unhide it. So you can see that's what we got with one click inside of the quick edit mode. It was quick. And if that's the look you're looking for, great. If I hide that layer, here's a different look that we got by going through the manual steps. And again, you can tweak all of these to get the look that you want. One thing you might try is this pencil sketch layer. Select that and change its opacity. So sort of how see-through it is. I can dial it down a little bit or dial it up. So each of these layers, the amount that layer is contributing to the overall image can be adjusted by tweaking the opacity layer. So maybe if I turn that pencil sketch one down a little bit, I get a different look. Re-show my quick pencil sketch, and I can even adjust that one. Maybe if I want to blend this more manual effect with the quick one together, just click that quick pencil sketch layer and change the opacity of that layer, and you can blend the two together all the way from the manual one back to the automatic one or anywhere in between to get exactly the look that you're after. So there you go. That's how we create a pencil sketch effect in Photoshop Elements. Have fun playing around with it, and thanks for asking the question on the Ask Bob page. Have a great day.